What if I told you that Back to the Future was almost called Spaceman from Pluto? Or that Disney, yes, Disney, rejected it for being too wholesome? And wait until you hear about the actor who got completely fired after filming for 6 entire weeks, costing the studio millions. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Stick around because these 20 behind-the-scenes secrets will completely shatter everything you thought you knew about one of Hollywood's most beloved movies. Before we fire up our flux capacitor, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell because we're about to count down the 20 weirdest movie facts that Hollywood buried for decades. And trust me, when you hear about number 1, the original ending involving a nuclear explosion, yeah, you heard that right. You'll understand why some of these secrets stayed hidden for so long. We've got everything from method actors gone rogue to executive decisions so bad they nearly destroyed the entire franchise before it even began. Number 20. Disney's shocking rejection. Starting our countdown at number 20, let's talk about something that'll make you question everything you know about Hollywood logic. Disney, the company that made talking animals and singing princesses, rejected Back to the Future because they thought it was too wholesome. I know, your brain is probably short-circuiting right now. But here's where it gets even weirder. The real reason Disney passed wasn't just about wholesomeness. They were genuinely uncomfortable with the subplot of Marty's mom unknowingly falling for her own future son. Apparently, even the House of Mouse draws the line somewhere when it comes to awkward family dynamics. And this is the same studio that later made a movie about a fish father obsessively searching for his son across the entire ocean. The rejection letter allegedly stated that the incestuous undertones were not suitable for the Disney brand. Keep in mind, this was the 1980s, when Disney was still trying to maintain that squeaky clean family image. Little did they know they were passing on what would become one of the highest-grossing franchises of all time. Number 19. The 44 Draft Nightmare. Coming in at number 19, think your homework takes forever. Try rewriting the same script 44 times. That's right, Back to the Future went through 44 different drafts over the course of several years, and some of these early versions were so bizarre, they make the final film look like a documentary. Picture this. In one early draft, Marty McFly was supposed to time travel using a refrigerator. Not a sleek DeLorean, not some high-tech device, a literal kitchen appliance. The idea was that he'd hide inside this fridge during an atomic bomb test in the Nevada desert, and the nuclear explosion would somehow catapult him through time. I'm not making this up. But wait, it gets weirder. Another version had the time machine built inside a photo booth. Imagine trying to explain that to your friends. Yeah, I traveled through time, but I had to squeeze into one of those tiny mall photo booths first. The visual alone is ridiculous. There was even a version where the time machine was powered by Coca-Cola instead of plutonium. The writers genuinely thought about having Doc Brown figure out that the secret ingredient in Coke could bend the space-time continuum. Can you imagine the product placement opportunities they missed there? Number 18. Doc Brown's bizarre inspiration. Number 18 might surprise you. Christopher Lloyd's iconic Doc Brown performance wasn't just pulled out of thin air. The character's wild appearance and eccentric mannerisms were deliberately based on 2 real people, Albert Einstein and classical conductor Leopold Stokowski. The Einstein connection makes sense. The wild white hair, the brilliant but scattered mind, the groundbreaking scientific theories. But Leopold Stokowski, that's where things get interesting. Stokowski was famous for his dramatic conducting style and theatrical personality. If you watch Doc Brown's hand gestures and the way he dramatically emphasizes certain words, you're literally watching Christopher Lloyd channel a classical music conductor. The makeup team spent hours each day creating that perfect mad scientist look, teasing Lloyd's hair into that signature Einstein-esque style. Fun fact, Lloyd actually had to arrive on set 2 hours early every single day just for hair and makeup. Number 17. The refrigerator time machine origins. At number 17, let's dive deeper into that refrigerator idea I mentioned earlier. The original concept wasn't just random. It was inspired by the very real story of a man who allegedly survived the atomic bomb testing in Nevada by hiding in a lead-lined refrigerator. The writers thought, if someone could survive a nuclear blast in a fridge, maybe they could time travel too. This concept actually made it pretty far into development. They had storyboards drawn up, location scouts for the Nevada test site, and everything. The only reason they scrapped it was because they realized kids might actually try to recreate the stunt by climbing into refrigerators. Even in the 1980s, Hollywood was starting to worry about copycat behavior. The irony. Decades later, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull used almost the exact same concept, and got absolutely roasted by critics and fans for it. Sometimes being first doesn't mean being right. Number 16. Christopher Lloyd almost passed. Number 16 will shock you. Christopher Lloyd, the man who gave us one of cinema's most memorable mad scientists, literally threw the Back to the Future script in the trash after reading the first few pages. He thought it was just another silly sci-fi B-movie and wanted nothing to do with it. It was actually his wife who convinced him to give it another chance. She literally pulled the script out of the garbage, sat him down, and made him read the entire thing. Only then did Lloyd realize the depth and heart of the story beneath all the time travel shenanigans. Even after agreeing to audition, Lloyd was hesitant about the role. He'd spent years trying to shed his image from playing Reverend Jim on Taxi, and he was worried about being typecast as another eccentric character. Little did he know that Doc Brown would become his most iconic role, overshadowing even his work on Taxi and later, The Addams Family. Number 15. Jennifer Parker's last-minute recasting. Coming in at number 15, here's a casting change that happened so late in production, it nearly caused a scheduling nightmare. The original Jennifer Parker was played by Melora Hardin. Yes, Jan Levinson from The Office. She had already done costume fittings, read-throughs, and was just days away from filming when the producers made a shocking decision. They replaced her with Claudia Wells because Hardin was too tall to stand next to Michael J. Fox. That's right, one of Hollywood's most beloved couples almost never happened because of a height difference. Hardin was 5 feet 6 inches, and when she stood next to Fox in heels, she towered over him in a way that looked awkward on camera. Claudia Wells, who was shorter at 5 feet 4 inches, got the call just 48 hours before filming was supposed to begin. She had to learn all her lines, do new costume fittings, and chemistry reads with Fox in record time. The crazy part? Wells almost turned down the role because she thought it was just another teen movie that would disappear quickly. Number 14. The original Marty McFly. Now we're getting to number 14, and this is where things get absolutely crazy. The Marty McFly you know and love almost never happened. Eric Stoltz was not only cast as Marty, he actually filmed for 6 full weeks before getting completely fired and replaced. This wasn't just a few scenes or a screen test. Stoltz filmed major sequences, including the skateboard chase scene, parts of the high school dance, and multiple interactions with Doc Brown. The studio had already spent over $1 million on his footage when they made the devastating decision to start over completely. What went wrong? Stoltz was approaching the role like a serious dramatic actor, which makes sense because he was coming off intense roles in films like Mask. He treated Marty McFly as a troubled teenager dealing with the psychological trauma of time travel. The directors wanted comedy and charm. Stoltz was giving them method acting and deep emotional complexity. Bob Gale, the writer, later said that watching Stoltz's dailies felt like watching a completely different movie, one that was dark, introspective, and frankly, not very fun. They realized they had cast a dramatic actor in what was essentially a comedic adventure role. Number 13. Michael J. Fox's brutal schedule. At number 13, let's talk about what happened after they fired Stoltz. Michael J. Fox was everybody's first choice for Marty McFly, but there was one massive problem. He was already starring in the hit TV show Family Ties, and was contractually obligated to keep filming. So what did they do? They created what might be the most insane filming schedule in Hollywood history. Fox would wake up at dawn, film Family Ties all day until 6 p.m., then immediately drive across town to film Back to the Future from 7 p.m. until 2 a.m. Then he'd go home, sleep for 4 hours, and do it all over again. This schedule went on for 4 months. Fox was literally living on 3 to 4 hours of sleep per night, surviving on pure adrenaline and probably way too much coffee. He later admitted that there were days he fell asleep standing up between takes. The crazy part? Fox's performance shows none of this exhaustion. He's energetic, charming, and completely committed to every scene. Meanwhile, the crew was taking bets on whether he would collapse before filming wrapped. Number 12. Huey Lewis's secret cameo. Number 12 is a cameo so perfect, most people miss it completely. Huey Lewis, who wrote and performed The Power of Love for the movie, actually appears in the film as the teacher who judges Marty's band audition as too darn loud. The irony is absolutely beautiful. Huey Lewis is literally telling Marty McFly that his rock music is too loud, while his own song becomes the movie's biggest hit. It's like a musician rejecting his own future success. But here's the kicker. Lewis wasn't originally supposed to be in the movie at all. The role was written for a generic actor, but Lewis happened to be on set the day they were filming the audition scene. Director Robert Zemeckis thought it would be hilarious to have the guy who wrote the movie's theme song reject the main character's musical abilities. Lewis later said it was one of the most fun days of his career, especially because he got to deliver the line with complete deadpan seriousness, while knowing that his song would be playing throughout the entire movie. Number 11. The controversial terrorist subplot. Coming in at number 11, here's something that almost got cut from the movie entirely. The subplot involving Doc Brown stealing plutonium from Libyan terrorists was considered so dark and politically sensitive that studio executives nearly demanded it be removed. This was 1985, remember. The Cold War was still going strong, international terrorism was a very real threat, and having your lovable mad scientist character involved with actual terrorists seemed incredibly risky. Some executives worried it would be too scary for kids or too controversial for international audiences. The writers fought hard to keep this subplot because it perfectly explained how Doc Brown got the plutonium needed for time travel, and it created the dramatic tension that kicks off the entire plot. Without the terrorists, there's no reason for Marty to accidentally travel back in time. The compromise? They made the terrorists comically incompetent. Instead of being genuinely menacing, they drive around in a van like cartoon villains and can't hit the broadside of a barn with their machine guns. It was a way to keep the plot device while making it feel less threatening. Number 10. The DeLorean from Hell. At number 10, let's talk about that iconic DeLorean, which was basically a beautiful nightmare to work with. Those cool gull-wing doors that make the car look so futuristic. They were an absolute disaster during filming. The doors constantly jammed shut, trapping the actors inside the car between takes. Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd literally had to be pried out with crowbars on multiple occasions. The crew started carrying crowbars as standard equipment whenever they were filming DeLorean scenes. But it gets worse. The DeLorean's engine was notoriously unreliable, so for most of the driving scenes, they had to push the car or tow it with cables. In scenes where you see the DeLorean driving normally, there's usually a hidden tow truck just out of frame doing all the actual work. The final insult? The DeLorean's stainless steel body made it incredibly difficult to light properly for filming. The crew had to develop special techniques to prevent the car from looking like a giant mirror that reflected every light and camera in the shot. Number 9. Crispin Glover's method. Acting madness. Number 9 takes us into the weird world of method acting gone wrong. Crispin Glover, who played George McFly, didn't just play a socially awkward character. He became one. Glover stayed completely in character between takes, refusing to break the George McFly persona, even during lunch breaks. This created some seriously awkward moments on set. While other actors were joking around and relaxing between scenes, Glover would sit alone, practicing George's nervous mannerisms and muttering his lines under his breath. The crew started treating him like he was actually the character, not the actor playing him. The weirdest part, in the scene where George hangs upside down in the cafe, Glover insisted on actually hanging upside down for real, even though they could have easily faked it with camera angles and stunt doubles. He hung there for hours while they set up different shots, getting increasingly dizzy and disoriented. This intense method approach created real tension with the directors and other actors. Glover clashed repeatedly with Bob Zemeckis over his character's motivations and refused to do certain scenes the way they were written. The conflicts got so bad that when it came time to film the sequels, Glover was replaced entirely, leading to one of the most infamous lawsuits in Hollywood history. Number 8. The Spaceman from Pluto disaster. At number 8, we have one of the most ridiculous title changes ever proposed in Hollywood history. A Universal Studios executive, who shall remain nameless to protect his legacy, was dead serious about changing the movie's title to Spaceman from Pluto. His reasoning: he thought Back to the Future was too confusing and that audiences wouldn't understand what the movie was about. Instead, he wanted a title that immediately told people it was a science fiction movie. Never mind that there are no spaceships or aliens anywhere in the film. Steven Spielberg, who was the executive producer, knew this was a terrible idea but couldn't just tell the studio executive he was wrong. So Spielberg pulled off one of the greatest pranks in Hollywood history. He sent the executive a memo saying, "Thank you for your wonderful joke about changing the title to Spaceman from Pluto. We all got a great laugh out of it." The executive was too embarrassed to admit he'd been serious, so he played along like it had been a joke all along. One fake memo saved one of cinema's most iconic titles from becoming Spaceman from Pluto. Can you imagine if that had actually happened? Number 7. The mall location that became a pilgrimage site. Number 7 brings us to a location that's become legendary among movie fans. The Twin Pines Mall, later Lone Pine Mall, was filmed at the Puente Hills Mall in California, and it's become an unofficial pilgrimage site for Back to the Future fans. The mall looks almost exactly the same today as it did in 1985, which means fans can visit and recreate scenes from the movie. The parking lot where the DeLorean first travels through time is still there, and on weekends, you'll often find groups of fans with their own DeLorean replicas reenacting the scene. But here's the really cool part. The mall management has embraced this fandom. They've put up plaques marking where key scenes were filmed, and they occasionally host official Back to the Future events. During the movie's 30th anniversary, they had a massive celebration with DeLorean car shows and Michael J. Fox look-alike contests. The mall even kept the J.C. Penney, where Marty buys his outfit for the 1955 scenes. Fans regularly go in and ask to buy the exact same clothes Marty wore, and the staff has gotten used to these requests over the years. Number 6. The flaming tire tracks. Coming in at number 6, let's talk about one of the most dangerous practical effects in the movie. Those iconic flaming tire tracks that appear when the DeLorean hits 88 miles per hour. They were created using real gasoline-soaked cloth strips that were literally set on fire. The special effects team would lay down these cloth strips along the path where the DeLorean was supposed to drive, soak them in gasoline, and then light them just as the car drove over them. This meant that Michael J. Fox was basically driving through actual fire, with real flames shooting up just inches from the car's body. Modern movies would use CGI for something this dangerous, but in 1985, they did it all practically. The fire department had to be on standby for every single take, and they burned through dozens of cloth strips during filming. The effect looks absolutely incredible on screen, but it was terrifying for everyone involved. Fox later admitted that he could feel the heat inside the DeLorean and was constantly worried about the car catching fire for real. Number 5. The lightning strike scene from hell. At number 5, we have what might be the most complex scene ever filmed in the 1980s. That climactic lightning strike sequence where Doc Brown connects the cable to the clock tower took 3 months to film. This wasn't just a matter of pointing cameras at Christopher Lloyd and hoping for the best. The scene required elaborate rain machines to create the storm, complex electrical effects to simulate lightning, carefully choreographed stunts as Doc Brown climbs the clock tower, and precise timing to make everything sync up with the car's arrival. The crew had to deal with real weather too. They were filming outdoors, so natural rain would often interfere with their artificial rain effects, creating continuity problems. They'd spend hours setting up the perfect shot, only to have real weather move in and force them to start over. Christopher Lloyd spent weeks learning to do his own climbing and wire work for the scenes where Doc Brown scales the clock tower. At age 47, he was doing stunts that would challenge actors half his age, all while wearing heavy period costumes and dealing with artificial rain and wind machines. Number 4. Biff's improvised insults. Number 4 gives us some of the movie's most quotable moments, and they weren't even in the script. Thomas F. Wilson, who played Biff Tannen, improvised most of his character's most memorable insults and malapropisms. The famous line, "Make like a tree and get out of here," was completely Wilson's idea. The script just said, "Biff threatens them," and Wilson came up with this perfectly stupid-sounding tough guy line that somehow became iconic. Wilson also improvised calling people butthead throughout the movie. This was years before Beavis and Butthead made the insult famous, so Wilson was basically creating what would become classic 90s slang. The directors loved Wilson's improvisation so much that they started encouraging him to come up with new insults for each take. Many of Biff's funniest lines were created on the spot, with Wilson drawing from his own experiences being bullied as a kid and turning those painful memories into comedy gold. Number 3. Ronald Reagan's presidential reaction. At number 3, we have a presidential seal of approval. When Ronald Reagan saw Back to the Future, he loved the joke about him being president in 1985, so much that he actually quoted the movie in a State of the Union address. In the movie, when 1955 Doc Brown hears that Ronald Reagan is president in 1985, he says, "Ronald Reagan? The actor? Who's the vice president, Jerry Lewis?" It was meant as a throwaway gag, but Reagan found it hilarious. During his 1986 State of the Union address, Reagan actually referenced the movie when talking about America's future, saying the country was where we're going. We don't need roads. A direct quote from Doc Brown. It was the first time a sitting president had quoted a Hollywood movie during such a formal address. Reagan reportedly watched the movie multiple times at the White House and would often quote Doc Brown's lines during casual conversations with staff. Secret Service agents said he particularly enjoyed the scene set in 1955, since that was around the time he was starting his Hollywood career. Number 2. Hidden Easter eggs. That change. Everything. Coming in at number 2, we have Easter eggs so subtle that most people miss them even after multiple viewings, but they completely change how you understand the movie's attention to detail. The most famous is the Twin Pines Mall becoming Lone Pine Mall. When Marty travels back to 1955, he crashes the DeLorean into one of the 2 pine trees on the land that will eventually become the mall. When he returns to 1985, the mall's name has changed to reflect this alteration to the timeline. It's a perfect example of the butterfly effect hidden in plain sight. But there are dozens of other changes. Mayor Goldie Wilson's political career was influenced by Marty's casual suggestion that he should run for mayor. The clock tower stopped working because of the lightning strike that sent Marty home. Even Biff's entire personality seems different in the new 1985 timeline. The most mind-blowing detail? If you look carefully at the background of the 1985 scenes after Marty returns, George McFly is more confident, the family is wealthier, and Biff is reduced to working for George instead of bullying him. The movie literally shows you an alternate timeline without explicitly calling attention to it. Number 1. The nuclear ending that never was. And finally, at number 1, we have the most shocking secret of all. The original ending of Back to the Future didn't involve a lightning strike at all. Marty was supposed to return to 1985 by driving the DeLorean into a nuclear explosion at a government atomic test site. Picture this. Instead of the dramatic clock tower finale, the movie would have ended with Marty McFly essentially surfing a nuclear blast through time. Doc Brown would have figured out the exact timing of an atomic bomb test, positioned the DeLorean at ground zero, and used the nuclear explosion to generate the 1.21 gigawatts needed for time travel. This ending actually made it into early script drafts and storyboard sequences before being scrapped. The reason? The filmmakers realized it was essentially a suicide mission. Even with the DeLorean's protection, driving into a nuclear explosion looked way too dangerous and would have completely changed the movie's tone. The lightning strike ending was developed as a replacement, and it turned out to be far more dramatic and emotionally satisfying. Instead of Marty passively waiting for a bomb to explode, he becomes an active participant in his own rescue, working with Doc Brown to harness the power of nature itself. But imagine if they had kept that nuclear ending. Back to the Future would have been a completely different movie, probably much darker, definitely more controversial, and possibly banned in several countries concerned about nuclear proliferation. And there you have it, 20 mind-blowing secrets that prove Back to the Future is even more incredible than you thought. From Disney's bizarre rejection to nuclear explosions that never were, this movie survived development hell to become a timeless classic. Which of these facts shocked you the most? Did you catch that Twin Pines to Lone Pine Mall detail before today? Drop a comment below and let me know what other movie secrets you'd like me to investigate. And if you're hungry for more Hollywood secrets that studios don't want you to know, check out this video where I reveal the dark truth behind Disney's animated classics. Trust me, after watching that, you'll never look at your childhood favorites the same way again. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because we're just getting started on uncovering the weird, wild, and wonderful secrets hiding behind your favorite movies. Until next time, keep questioning everything Hollywood tells you.